Make sure to join the Kahoot as well, kahoot.it, because we will actually start with a little question as I usually do in my community coachings. Today won't be like a big fight in Kahoot for winning something. It's mainly more open questions, just a couple where I wanted to ask you stuff to get a better idea of how you're thinking, or maybe point out stuff that I think people are generally thinking about in the wrong way. Yeah, not too much, but still worth participating. Yeah, let's actually get started. And as you all know, you chose the topic. I was a little hoping for the other ones because it would be a little easier to just go through hands and really just tell you on the spot what's up. I tried to come up with topics that all fit to the content of the last 4 weeks. So it's not just about what was released last week. In the last month, all the videos were mainly about the reaction game, how to play on the flop, facing a c-bet out of position, but about flop action game in position as well. So just talking about that in general would have been interesting too. We had some good discussions going on. I like a lot the quizzes from Thibaut, just how you guys participated there. And this is just the way of learning. And yeah, I hope you've seen all the videos regarding the little principles and the general approaches. You have an idea of the dice principle, of the lookalike principle. So I can try and implement those terms a little more whenever I'm talking, just thinking about you guys knowing what I'm talking about, instead of like when I'm streaming, for example, I feel like I need to explain every single time. But now I hope we have a little baseline. You have watched most of the stuff and most of it is clear, to really use that to then dig a little deeper, maybe pull up Odin or Pio, for 1 or 2 or 3 hands and really have a deeper look how stuff is playing out in certain spots. And yeah, I think so. Right now we are 24 people now, 15 of you in Kahoot. So one last reminder, make sure to participate here as well before we really start with the first question. This is where you should be if you want to participate and interact with me here. Obviously the chat is open for questions and anything as always. Yeah, let's see what the next slide brings. I have a little, where did it go actually? You see my awesome preparation, how I do it. I have a little paper that is actually cut off here with the 7 questions, because I'm such a Kahoot noob that I always mess up. And yeah, let's see what the next slide pretty much brings. And topic today, how to continue after a check raise. So one of the last videos that was actually re-uploaded and was a coaching I gave during Poker Code Academy that I liked a lot, because this is my favorite topic, building check raising ranges. And I hope you have seen that. If not, still try to get the most out of it today, but make sure to rewatch the whole show there. It's now not before. I didn't like that. It is hidden so much just anywhere in the MTT section under community coachings. Sorry for that. Josip Simonic. So everyone who knows him, that was him. He wants to visit me, I guess, in 2 days. Let's actually make that on mute. Yeah, how to continue after a check raise is the topic. Now I lost what I was talking about, thanks to Josip. Yeah, my favorite lesson I was talking about is just building those check raising ranges. How do we do it? If you want to figure that a little more out, what is like, how do I think here? It's not value and bluffs, it's something else. And what is it all about, this medium part of bottom pair and something and backdoors and etc. etc. Make sure to check that out. It is now in the cash section as well, in the training ground, facing a c-bet out of position where it fits perfectly. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, next slide, the situation. Let's just clear things up. Again, what situation we are in all the spots we're talking about today. And yeah, let's start with what we did was, depending on our advantages on the flop or disadvantages even, we decided to create a check raise range. So that happened already, right? There you see again that I'm not thinking in terms of value and bluff right on the flop, because it's all about equity, and not just equity versus full ranges or anything. It's about equity to really get stacks in. For me, building a check raising range is the first step directional in. So we really think ahead already. And this is why some bottom pair with like a clean 2 pair out might be a better check raise than some top pair, top kicker type of hands that are obviously right now way stronger, but yeah, all that was in the other coaching I was just talking about that you can see on the platform. So how likely is it that we can value bet river for stacks as our main driving force when thinking about check raising ranges? But that happened already. We did that, and now we are on the turn. What do we need to do? First, we should know our range, which we built in the first step. Now, what is the next thing? Well, there's a turn card appearing every single time. Sometimes it's a brick, sometimes it's changing the board a lot, and sometimes, well, something in between, right? So we need to evaluate how that turn card interacts with our range and how that turn card interacts with villain's range to reevaluate the whole situation. By doing that, well, we figure out the spot and can actually come up with a new wardrobe. Right? We decide which sizings we want to use. What is our plan? Do I just use one sizing, two sizings, three sizings? What makes sense? And to get to that point, we will think, as always, mainly about nuts. Who has more nuts now? Which other parts in my range am I having? Who will improve to more nuts on certain river cards or not? So the same process as always, pretty much, or as on the flop, just a new spot. And some things will be different here. And now let's start that Kahoot quiz here. And the very first question, let's have a look. Well, actually, just I want to know what you struggle with. And this is just an open question, no points to be earned. This is your chance to tell me what are your struggles after check raising. So we are talking about that situation when we are on the turn. What is your problem there? What should I talk specifically about in this coaching? This is your chance to really tell me your problem. Try to keep it a little short and not too many wall of texts. Just like be precise there. Is it the sizing plan? Is it the how to continue with weaker hands? Is it like which draws? Or I don't know, right? Come up with anything. I'll leave you enough time to really put in your answer. And then I'll have a look to get an overview for myself and really customize that session a little for you guys. Oh, you can type beyond the time anyway. That's well, good info. As I said, Kahoot noob. So thanks for all the info. And I take the time to write back Joseph to tell him what the fuck is wrong with him to call me now. All right. So 12 answers. Let's see. Show answers. When do I continue betting and when do I check and what sizings, right? So pretty much all the parameters, right? Building our wardrobe on the flop had two steps. Thinking about which sizings to use and then which hands in which categories. So betting or checking is like sizings as well. Checking is just the sizing of 0. What bet size are in our wardrobe and how do we categorize the specific hand in it? How to use dice lookalike, the allow principle. Okay, I like that. On the turn, I get it somewhat on the flop. Find right frequencies is always a term that is like, okay, not sure, but it all goes in the wrong, in the right direction, in the same direction I wanted to say. It's all about, well, frequency, sizing, some kind of unsureness, which bluffs are going to big, small, right? You're already talking about having small bet or big bet. Now the question could be how big is a big bet? Depending on our stack size, maybe. How to protect my range? Well, what strong hands to check? Very good question. How to control betting frequency, not to overbluff. How to continue with weaker hands. Fearing punting it off, not getting enough folds. So you're scared of bluffing. You're thinking about when could villain be overfolding, or just thinking about, this is a little exploitative already. Okay, how to continue when the turn is not good for me. All right, I'll give you a little hint. Accepting it and not invest too much money is already the first step. Bet sizes on the turn cards, problems with Joseph, plan with medium strong top pairs, especially King XX, Queen XX type boards. Do we rather check? Can we still value bet? All right, the typical King 5 deuce rainbow, he c-bet small. I check raise something like King Jack because the solver shows me I should do it sometimes. Now on the turn, I have the problem that I only want to get one more bet in, but there's 2 streets left. Fuck my life, right? It's like that type of thing. Very tough spot for me personally. Okay, how often do we continue to barrel? So you see, it's pretty much all the same things. Bluffs, how to play the strong hands, how to play the medium strong hands, how to keep frequencies under control, how to evaluate the board in general, which sizings to use. After deciding which sizings to use, deciding which hands or bluffs fall in which category. So pretty much just all of it, what I expected, but that's great. So yeah, let's continue here. What I came up with next. I think I just talked about general thoughts next. It's always a surprise. I mean, I did that small presentation this morning, but it's always still a surprise what comes next. And that brings us to the next questions. And actually, it's right exactly what you were writing about is what I expected. So the same problems I had or still have when thinking about it. And the next step would be for me to think about what are the goals actually of our certain range parts. All the ones you mentioned, what is the goals of my air, of my strong draw, of my weak gut shot? What's the goal of something like the king jack on king 5 deuce that I mentioned? What if we check raise queen 10 on jack 9 deuce and the turn is a queen, right? A middle-ish top here, something like that. What's actually the goal of our nuts? And now we'll go through that step by step, and I want to see your answers. So think about that. That will be one question after another, and we start with the nuts. Right? So first question will be, again, just type it in. What is the goal of our nutted hands? Again, we are in the situation. We did check raise the flop. We are now on the turn, and we have a freaking nutted hand. What's our plan? So I only gave that 30 seconds, but now I learned that you can keep typing. So don't worry about the time too much. All right. No clue why I can't show answers so far. Okay, coming. Show answers. Okay, playing for stacks on river. Nutted hands want to play for stacks to get as much money in as possible. We can choose aggressive, but also passive lines for that, I guess. So I will click on that. Just everyone read that through one time and think about that. This is pretty much the perfect answer right away. So I'll just read it out loud again. What is our goal? To get as much money in as possible. And then adding, we can choose aggressive, but also passive lines for that, I guess. And our job is mainly to find out which of those we should choose. Maximize EV is very standard. We always want that. That's like really does not help. I mean, it's obviously correct, but it doesn't really help me come up with a plan. To get as much chips as possible by the river, size to get stacks in on the river. So here, right, you see the difference? This year is what I expected a lot more, actually. Talking about betting. This year is talking about betting, and this is the first thought always. We have the nuts, we want to bet, which is actually not necessarily correct, right? Our goal is really just to get the money in. It's not about betting or checking. It's about getting money in. In which way we can achieve that, we need to talk about that. Get the stacks in by the river, bet right here, bet as well with an addition geometrical bet size. We will talk about bet sizes as well. And geometrically all in, for everyone who is not familiar with that term, just means the same percentage of the pot on both streets, right? It's like, could be pot size turn, pot size river. That would be geometrically, betting geometrically. And something we can use that's like a term coming from Pio to just type in is 2E. It's just a bet size. I will use that later in the quiz as well. Is 2E, and then the solver does that automatically. Get the most value, not scaring opponents off while charging them value. This is talking about betting as well here. Right? So you see how it's like the difference of some people just talking about betting, not really thinking about checking, and some others seeing the whole picture and really talking about just getting the money in. Okay, to get the stacks and make the bet, right here, talking about just the bet as well. Right? We can think ahead already. One more question is, what actually the turn card is good for villain, right? Do we get more money in by checking potentially, right? Because he should bet more often, because he has such a clear advantage, etc., etc. So you see already some answers I'm super happy with. Some others where I think like a little bit is missing, and this is the point where you can learn right away. Okay, let's just check the chat here. Something happening. Something nuts is a bad word. I don't know what the stars mean here, so I'll just skip that. Okay, and let's go with the next one. can guess already, now we're talking about part 2. What is the goal of our medium strong hands? Think about the King Jack on King 5 deuce. We check raise, turn is a freaking 9. Or the Queen 10 on Jack 9 deuce. Turn is a freaking queen. What is actually the goal of our medium strong hands in that spot? Okay, well, if we get the same answer pretty much like for the strong hands, to get to showdown cheaply, to see the river. I mean, that's not talking about pricing. If the goal is just to see the river, you can go all in. Check or small bet. That's not for me a goal. That's more like a way to reach a certain goal. Right? So it might be something like to get to showdown cheaply is my goal. And my way to achieve that is to check or to bet small and then hope for the best. Right? Don't want to blow up the pot while giving the right odds for opponents to call a worse hand. Right? Not like we want to either bet small or check to keep ranges wider to still be ahead of his range. If we really go directional in, well, we only get called by worse. That's not good. Or I'm using the term as well now, only getting called by worse just implies that I'm betting. But actually, it's not what matters. It's about to get money in versus worse hands. Whether I bet and they call, or I check, he bluffs and I call, or it goes check, check. It's the same. It's about money going in versus a range I'm hopefully ahead of, or at least make profitable decisions. Maximize our equity realization, right? We want to realize equity. That's correct. Not get blown off our hand or to only get charged from a very strong range. To lose minimum if we are behind, to get one additional street of value if possible, right? That is exactly just, I see how you have the example of King Jack in your mind, pretty much, right? Reach showdown as cheap as possible, getting to showdown to get to showdown. So we see all the words here. We see pot control, we see small bet check, which is, well, now here's the first problem. A totally different world or like incentives that or goal than what our nuts wanted to achieve, right? So on the one hand, now we have usually something in our range that wants to slow play. And on the other hand, we have something that wants to blow up the pot. All right, now, next part, and obvious last question. What is the goal of our draws here? I'm most interested in those answers here. So try to really think about it. Take your time. I can even give you some more time here. Think about it. What do they actually want to achieve? Mainly draws, like we don't have too much full random air probably. I'll give you some more time. I want to have like at least 10. So we have 7 answers so far. Keep going, team. All right, let's have a look. Full mental bluff mode, fold equity, make the better hand to fold, win some pots that don't belong to us and still lose the minimum. Taking down the pot right now, making better hands to fold. At the same time, we prefer to have some additional equity. Maximize our equity realization. So we have here something actually that is the same thing that we wrote down for the last category. Fold out better hands, better hands, better hands, worse hands. All right, so here we have a problem, guys. What is a better hand? I don't like that word. If we are not on the river, better hands or worse hands, because it just makes things too easy. And it stops you really thinking about the spot. So I like the term equity versus something way, way, way more, right? It's people thinking about, hey, I have it now, like on the flop. What is better, a 12-outer draw or aces? Well, with aces, you are ahead right now, but the 12-outer draw, it's pretty much a flip, right? It's like that, I have the better hand. It's the feeling. And it's like, yeah, he wants to fold you out or whatever. I don't care too much, right? It's like, whatever. What I want to achieve by betting always is, I want to fold out something that has good equity versus me, right? So it's like, I just want to fold out hands that have equity. It's like, there's one more street to be playing. Whether I have jack high and he has queen high, I don't care whether he folds that now or later. I will never go to showdown with my jack high probably. So it's like, yeah, I don't care too much. But the getting equity to, like, getting hands to fold that I have low equity against, and getting hands to call that I have okay equity against. That's the goal, actually, with two things. Maybe one example, if let's say I overbet on the turn with a low flush draw, I might get villain to fold better flush draws. That would be something that is golden for me, because, well, against those, I'm pretty fucked up. But if he calls like his random pair or not, that I have strong equity against, still, that's actually fine, right? So it's always that, and when we talk about a little later about which hands fit in which category, this is something to think about. What am I actually achieving? Am I folding out something, sure, that is better than my hand? That's always okay, right? But it's like, how do I actually perform? Is it 0 versus 100%? Or is it, I still have 20% to hit the freaking nuts and he has 80? Or do I have 35% with my super monster draw and he calls with 65? That's fine, right? Or do I fold something out that has 95% versus my hand? That's a big success. So I want to really think a little more precisely about that and kill the term better or worse hands for flop and turn. Especially like pre-flop, that doesn't make any sense. That's like pre-flop equities are still close when you don't run like aces into kings or anything. On the flop, equities for hands that are interesting still matter. It's like, yes, we are check raising bottom pairs with a nice 2-pair out because they have freaking 20% versus an overpair. 25 if they have like an additional flush draw. So it does not make sense to say like, yeah, you're way weaker. No, you have 25 versus 75, or you have 40 versus 60 with a flush draw, 36 or something, or you have 32, 33% with an open ender. So the better worse term just takes that part of poker away. We can talk about that on the river when we can make a clear ranking by showdown value. Then we can talk about better and worse. All right, so I thought we were referring to the river also when talking about our goals. Okay, then we're good, right? But then we're talking about the river. Right now, I'm just talking about the turn. For the river, we can use it, but I hope it still makes sense to you. And this is a big takeaway, because the more precise you can talk about your goals and what you want to achieve with a certain line, the better your results will always be, right? It's just, I think in Slack, someone asked me yesterday, or 2 days ago, he's like overwhelmed with all the stuff he learned now, and he's always lost when playing in-game now. And he was asking for advice how to handle that situation. And so yeah, that's just natural, and it's not possible to really nail everything. So I gave him the advice to really have that session focus every time, just on one spot or 2 spots. Obviously, we are trying to play as good as possible, but it's just not possible to learn all disciplines at the same time. So focus on 1 or 2. And one big tool or idea I use is just talking to myself. Whenever I can make sense of something and I can justify it for myself, it cannot be that bad, right? If you tell me you're overbetting the turn with a low flush draw to make better flush draws fold, how bad can it be, right? If your assumption is correct, at least. But okay, fold out slightly better hands, realize equity withdrawals, realize equity, yes, it's a big part as well, right? It's like in there that we get called by something we still have equity against. To make better hands fold, to balance them when we have nut hands so they can't just always fold. I like that a lot. So not the better hands part, but to balance when we have nut hands so they can't just always fold. Because here we have the first combination of 2 of our range parts. The air is a tool to force villain to make the calls. If we are just betting our nuts, well, villain can just fold all the time, right? Which I'm a big nit. I like folding to people who are not creative and will never have enough bluffs. So I just fold because they have it most of the time. But we can use random, not random, right? The full mental bluff mode. We can use that. And by doing that, we force villain to keep calling, which gives actually additional value to our nuts. Okay, so very interesting. And I hope we had some small insights from just going through that right away. And I think this is, let me check. Yes, this was already the few questions. And now I wrote that down myself here again. And I put down those exclamation marks because it's just so important for me. The nuts are really there. Their only goal is to get the maximum money in. By check calling, check raising, betting, small to get raised or overbetting themselves, I don't care. These are all options that make sense. And now we look at the next parts where I already tried to combine them a little, right? Which we have seen in the last answer I showed you. Part 2, they try to see the showdown cheaply. Right? Obviously, everything you wrote there, realize, I mean, it's not my perfect answer. I just wrote down something. They are not interested in blowing up the pot, right? They want to keep the pot small, maybe one more bet in, a small bet in, check, and then a bigger bet, whatever, right? But by having those hands that want to see a showdown cheaply, we give villain incentive to bet. And then part 3, well, I wrote it down like you did, so you can make fun of that, fold out better hands, which I just told you it's bullshit to talk like that. So you see, I didn't put that much time into that presentation, to be honest. I thought about it a lot, but not for writing it down. Fold out better hands, total garbage that I wrote down there. I would like to change it. But mainly that means we're giving villain incentives to call. Your third point is wrong. Yes, you're right. Here we go. All right, so this is how we learn the most. And now, what you hopefully figure out is the wrong understanding how everyone approaches that spot. First of all, check raising range. Everyone is too value heavy. Okay, because just like with nuts, it's easy. With non-nuts, it's tougher. And then on the like when we are on the turn, what is everyone thinking about? Everyone is thinking about nuts. And nuts means betting. Where actually we don't care. It's like there's nothing like betting written down here. It's just they have the goal of getting the maximum money in any ways possible. And now we can see already, hey, part 2 and 3 are actually way more interesting. How much of part 2 do we have? How much of part 3 do we have? And that tells already the incentives that are given to villain. Let's create an example that does not exist in the real world, but just like a little mind game. We get to the turn with just part 2 and part 1. So actually we have hands that want to get to showdown cheaply and hands that want to get the maximum money in. Well, what should we be doing, right? This part here, we only have part 2, gives villain reason to fire hard on that, right? To build a polarized range, to fuck up all those weak top pairs. And then, well, what's probably the best way to play our part 1? By checking, right? If villain decides to play a high betting frequency, then he kills our part 2. We hate to see it, but at the same time, we maximize our money with our nuts, get maximum money in. If, let's say, we create a range on the turn that either has nuts or has nothing, well, checking is the most stupid thing in the world we can be doing. Right? We can find a good mix of bullshit hands and of nuts, and, well, because we have those bullshit hands, we force villain to call a certain frequency. Well, if he overfolds, we make our money here. If he calls too much, we make our money here. And so this is how we can build things together. In most spots, we find the mix, right? In the end, but this is now, actually we should read that slide here from bottom to top and really think about that way. Hey, my nuts, I don't care what I do. I just want to get the maximum money in. So I focus on part 2 and part 3. What do I want to do? And then I use certain nuts to combine with part 3 into a betting range. And I combine some nuts with part 2 to put into a checking range or a small betting range or whatever. And this is then what gives you the mix, where what you see is often in Pion, we will get to that some hands want to clearly do one thing, checking. Weak top pair wants to check. Some hands clearly want to be betting, or well, some air wants to check fold just right away. It's just like the weakest stuff wants to check fold. Okay. And lots of the nuts are often somewhat indifferent because, and this is now how I understand it, is, well, they don't care whether they get mixed up with this part or get mixed up with this part. All right, so let's see what's next. Now getting to a certain problem. Right now we are on the turn and we're coming back to the question, hey, how do we play now actually? So now we have talked a little about the general thoughts about how our range is constructed. And this is very, very important. Maybe try to remember the videos you have watched about the flop. I was never talking about my range. All the sizings just depended on villain's range. And my explanation for that was that, hey, our range is always linear. We open raise on the button, big blind defense. Jack 9 deuce, I have top set, middle set, bottom set, all the straight draws. I have everything. I can choose any sizing. I find the hands that fit. And villain's range has those gaps. Remember the line graphs maybe, well, he doesn't have queens, kings, aces, jacks, tens, ace, king. That leads to problems. Now, that's a very, very different scenario because our range is not really linear in most cases anymore. Depends on how we got into this spot. Villain's flop c-bet sizing, our check raise sizing, all that. But usually our range is not really linear anymore. So we need to take into account how our range is structured. Is it more just part 1 and part 3? Is it still somewhat linear and will lead to mixes and different sizings? Or is it just we always have a little something? So now it's the first time actually in a content session where we really need to talk about how do both ranges play? How can we attack villain, but does it make sense for us at the same time for the hands we are having? Because if we, in the end, if we end up just representing nothing, well, we probably have nothing, right? Or if we just represent one hand, we usually just have that one hand. So that's a big problem. All right, just reading the chat on the side. So Jerome is saying, exploit. Don't the nuts want to get the money in on the turn by betting way more as exploit? Since most villains are checking back way too much after being check raised. If that is true, yes, right? But our nut question is only how do we get the maximum money in? And that is true for lower stakes. If people are more call happy than they are bet happy and they are not bluffing correctly, well, then we obviously take control of the pot size ourselves and mainly work with betting. But if people understand the game, if you rise up like, yeah, the stakes, then there are some boards where actually you should, I'll have some examples probably. And yeah, let's get to those examples because this will just be way better to really explain stuff. All right, so I did not include that in the presentation. So actually I have my Hold'em manager on the side here and I have Pio on the side. So we'll just look at a couple of hands. I hope that is fine the way, yeah, that's full screen percent. So let's see. This is NL 1000 on PokerStars. Some rack open raises on the button. If anything is unclear, I didn't try that beforehand with a replayer here. Just let me know in the chat, but I just assume it's fine. We obviously defend our 5-2 suited here. Flop is a nice, easy Jack 9 deuce rainbow. Villain can use multiple sizings, mainly the small one. He can just build a wardrobe where he just bets full range with a small sizing. He can implement a bigger sizing that is built around like pocket queens, ace jack, and obviously all kinds of gut shots and draws as well. Here he ended up betting small. You can't see that, but actually the bet is $18. So it's like third pot. And now we have the first decision. If you are interested in how the check raising range looks like, again, check out the other community coaching that is on the platform already, the Poker Academy coaching. Everything is about that. I'll just give you the quick rundown. That range that I will have here, check raising, is built around everything that has equity to play for stacks. Right? So that can be something like Queen 10, King 10, 10 8, Queen 8, 7 8, 10 7 with a backdoor flush draws. Obviously something like Jack 9, pocket 9s if I don't 3-bet, pocket deuces, something like a 10x with a backdoor flush draw, something like a Queen X with a backdoor flush draw, something like an Ace 5 with a backdoor flush draw, but something like this here as well. The bottom pair that can make nice trips, or a clean 2-pair, right? A 2-pair where villain is not improving to a straight a lot. So like hitting a 5 on the turn is pretty sweet with a backdoor flush draw. That's a nice one. So yeah, I check raise here. We can talk about check raise sizings here as well, but that's not the biggest deal here. Anything can be fine. This is a half pot sizing, 75% can be fine as well. Then you need to be a little more polarized, but okay. So I check raise here, and now we have the first spot. We get the 7 of hearts. None of the flush draws gets there. Yeah, there's no flush draw added. 10-8 gets there. 7, 8, 7, 10 now has a third pair. And I have a question for you. And that is, where's the Kahoot quiz? Here we go. Let's get to the next question. I hope you have seen the spot. So I did check raise versus a small sizing. Turn is that. And now I want to know which is the main sizing we want to use on that board. Don't think about my 5-2 suited. Which is the main sizing you want to use with your range? Talking about the betting part of it now. And here you see as well the 2E, which just means a linear sizing. That would be like 120% pot here in that specific case. I know there was not much time, but okay. So we see the 75, we see the 2E sometimes, the 150, the 30. Let's just look it up and I'll try to get through that here. I think I have it somewhere. And let's just go through it pretty quickly. Yeah, again, you guys see we have cash game ranges. So we are freaking tight, right? Villain does c-bet, high frequency, mainly small sizing. I offered a small sizing and a big sizing, whether it's 60, 75 or 30 or 25, doesn't matter for that case here. We can see right away a small bet, range bet will be fine as well. So against the small bet, we build our check raising range exactly the way I said. We see the offsuit gut shots here. We see some of that ace jack, king jack that is indifferent between check raising and check calling. We obviously see nutted hands like pocket deuces. We see that backdoor stuff I was talking about, some queen X suited, some 10X suited with a backdoor straight plus backdoor flush. Those open-enders here like 10-8, obviously, but as well something like 3 deuce, 4 deuce, 5 deuce with a backdoor flush draw. So that's all cool. I do check raise. Villain is only answering with a call pretty much, and we get the 7 of hearts. And yeah, I didn't solve that to the highest accuracy because I didn't have infinite time here and my computer is not that strong. But what we see here is a good mix of things, but a clear favorite. And the clear favorite is this one here. We have $88 in the pot, and that's the 106, the 120%, something like that. That's the typical sizing there. That represents the 2E. That will be another 120% on the river to get stacks in. And we can think about what is the reason for that. And yeah, we need to talk about evaluation of the turn card. How much does it improve us? How much does it improve Villain? So first of all, Villain here, cash game, doesn't have too much 10-8 off, opening just a little. So that's not that strong for him as making those straights compared to all the king 10 offsuit, queen 10 offsuit, king queen offsuit. This is something Villain has full frequency. The 7 does not really improve to too many 2 pairs. So actually, let's think about nuts that we check raised on the flop. What is their goal now? They want to go direction all in. That's still the plan. They are still nuts. Then the next question, do we have new nuts? Well, 10-8 got there, and we have nut draw still. Something like king 10 is now a double gutter, queen 10 was an open ender already. We didn't add any of the flush draws, so you see like that queen 4 clubs type of stuff is just all giving up. And pretty much, yeah, that is already that's already our answer here. We have part 3 that is draws, and we have part 1, and all that wants to go direction all in. So that is our main choice, right? And then we have a part that is the problem part, right? And this is just as I want to see it as, again, like our king jack is the part 2. What does it want to do? It's like small bet is fine, check is fine, whatever, right? It's like, it's a bluff catching game if we check and face bets. And now let's see. So we have figured out part 3, king 10, queen 10, king queen. We have figured out part 1, our nuts, 10-8, pocket deuces, jack 9. And what else have we figured out? Part 2, ace jack, king jack, jack 5 suited, that type of stuff. So now what we need to do is finding the perfect fit. And that's, well, we build a betting range of part 1 and part 3, nuts and air. And that's pretty easy here because we have air that has very, very good equity versus calling range, all nut draws. Cool. We put that together with deuces, with the straight, and some of the jack 9. And now this was another question in the very first round of questions. It's like how to use the lookalike principle, for example, right? We have ace jack, king jack, jack six suited, if we don't forget to check raise that sometimes, and they pretty much mainly want to check. So which of the nuts is the perfect candidate to put in the same range? Well, it's like the jack nine is a good one, right? We have that offsuit, that is a high frequency check that looks like the ace jack and the king jack, so that's all cool. It blocks calling range with that nine anyways, so that's pretty much it. The main reason for using the big sizing is that, well, what are we trying to make indifferent in the end? And that is still something we beat with all our nuts. This is the reason why we want to go all in. We want to make indifferent villains jack X, villains pocket queens, pocket kings, pocket aces. I can just show you that. If I bet here, they all need to call again. Ace jack, we are playing for $194 right now. And ace jack has already just like $9-10 of EV. So that's almost indifferent so far. Let's say it calls and we face another brick on the river, then when we are jamming, aces are indifferent, kings are indifferent, queens are indifferent. And this is the big deal, that all the turn card didn't change so much. That means, hey, villain is like, didn't improve to too many hands, and we still can target this here. Let's see, what do we have here in the chat? What is 2E? 2E is the linear sizing to use perfect direction or all in. So what you can do if you use Pio is what I did here. That's a little small, I guess, but I just turn out of position. I put in 2E and the solver does it for you. And yeah, mid game ranges, yes. So let's go back. Sorry for all the back and forth, but yeah, let's double check how I played the hand as well. Deuce 5 suited. I hope I knew that 2E is my main sizing here. This is what I did. That's pretty much, yeah, I used the 150% button. That's a little cheating. So something like 230 would be better, but I guess that's okay. And he calls, river is the king of clubs. So queen 10 gets there, my king 10, my king queen improves to a top pair. And well, now we only have one choice, and that's sticking the money in there and getting the fold. We can just double check, understanding all that, right? So when I review a hand like that, it's about all the steps, right? On the turn, in game, I knew, okay, hey, this is one where I mainly use that. I think if I run it to higher accuracy, it will be even more of that. And yeah, so I choose that. Villain is mainly answering by calling, right? He wants to raise some stuff because my queen 10, king 10 has so much equity. So he raises those hands that he cannot fold anyways on the river, disregarding the card, but have the clear value right now. Right? So why is R7s raising? Well, because they get it in against Jack 9 now, but wouldn't get it in against Jack 9 on an 8 or a 10 or a queen river, potentially. So this is, well, are people doing that? I don't know. Call, and then the river is, let me see, sorry, I want to talk about my deuce 5 on the turn. We can do whatever, it's a fine bluff. So I went for it, and on the king river, king of clubs, it's like the clearest fist pump jam in the world. And you see even how much money it makes, $26 in my pocket by jamming instead of giving up on that card. Would be interesting to see how it works on a full break, but still one of the better bluffs. Giving up something like queen 10, blocking all of villain's folding range. Let me see. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. How do we decide what to do in game when we have a situation like this where 5-2 suited is 50% check, 50% big bet? Do you randomize? No, it just means that if villain is playing somewhat correctly, it has the same EV. But usually villain is not playing correctly. So he is either overfolding or not, or I want to be a little more aggressive or not, because, well, let's say we have 50% of 5 deuce and 50% of 4 deuce here. So now, first of all, you need to be sure that you raise both of those. Let's say you forget to check raise 4 deuce suited. Then on the turn, if you do not have those, actually you will switch to 100% betting with this combo to get the right frequency somewhat. It is just important to understand, hey, this is not the perfect combo to be barreling. But a king 10, queen 10 pretty much always wants to barrel, but it's a good one. And then you make your decision, yeah, based on assumptions, right? It's just, is he overfolding or not? I actually think about that stuff before. Right? This is one of the favorite spots where I love overbluffing the turn. because this is where my experience says that people are overfolding. They make their decisions on the turn, not necessarily overfolding the river. So if the river was a 3, I see myself giving up quite a lot, even though that was almost 100% jam with Pio. But the turn, yeah, it's like my experience, this is the overfolding spot where people, yeah, against that overbet, I mean, they should call all their queen 10s, right? They can, people are folding that because it's freaking scary, right? Or whatever. Mainly people are calling their sets and not fast playing as well. So this kills your river fold equity. But yeah, to answer the question, that's pretty easy. Okay, Tom asks, on a 8-10 queen turn, is the turn size 75%? I didn't think overbet turn was a thing when straights come in. Very good thing. So we need to evaluate the turn card. And that depends on like how many new nuts does villain create, or way more, how much decrease our old nuts in value. If the turn is a queen, how strong is our jack 9 still? It's like, well, do we want to go direction all in with that still? Probably not. So actually what happened is we lose some nuts, but add to part 2, right? To medium strong hands. My jack 9 wants to get to showdown, maybe one more bet in. So let's just have a look. I think that will be huge mixes, because here I didn't solve to the highest accuracy for time reasons, but let's have a look at the queen. Let's get the queen of spades there. And what you see here is exactly what Tom says. Overbet doesn't exist. And if I keep running that sim here, this will go to a 0%. That is pretty clear. And what we see here as well is, how do our nuts play? The queen is an awesome card for in position. And we have lots of medium strong hands now. Actually, if you think about it, what is our heir here now? We can even take the offsuit, makes it easier. Offsuit, what is our heir here? We don't have any. We have some 10-4 suited. Okay, right? So, what do we have now? We have nuts. Obviously, we have king 10. Obviously, we have 10-8. But we have lots of jack 9, queen 10, king queen, all medium strong. And us having all those hands gives villain incentive to fire on that. Villain can still have like ace king type of hands. He has potential bluffs. He has heir. So what we want to do here is mainly work with small bet sizes or checking. Why? We don't need to go direction all in. This is the important thought. My king 10 to stack a set, I don't need to be betting. So if I check here, villain should invest quite a lot of money. Or if I, let's say, bet small, there's even that clear raising range. And in the end, the money goes in with that, with the nuts anyways, right? That's, again, kind of, you can see that as, in a way, the dice principle. Do I need to do the job myself? If I have king 10, I think about, make sure to stack his freaking jacks and knights. That's my goal, right? And to achieve that, well, I don't need to overbet now, because then I'm pretty unbalanced and my checking range is fucked up. And so this is something that probably leads to potential leaks that your villains are having. If your villain is checking here, he's probably not checking often enough with king 10. So way more, he's just having queen 10 all the time, or king queen, and then you can hammer on him, pretty much even going for a bigger value than you could in theory with your ace queen, with your kings, aces, something like that, going for it really thinly, getting the one more call from something like king queen, queen 10, or even bluff him off to play for stacks because he's unprotected there. Right, perfect, Mihur. So anytime the turn favors heavily the in position, we downsize or check, and the big size doesn't exist. If we have hands that are interested in building that pot size, there are other turns where we only have heir or nuts. Then we check a lot and give up, or go big. But that's a few boards. All that in between is sizing down. How much do you consider blocking, unblocking villains' raising range when choosing very strong hands as small barrels on turns? I think that is not a big deal on the turn. Think about the blockers on the river, especially like with tight ranges. If you have like that 5 deuce spot, for example, and you have it versus under the gun, or like an earlier position where really sets matter more from a combo perspective, having that set blocker to go all the way, like that kind of blocker is more important. Or to have that, well, unblocked villains folding range on the river, that's way more important. On the turn, it's more about equity and the hand strength itself. Are the nuts going small on the turn, but we go polar on the river? So split river range into medium size and jam. Well, when we have like 3.5 times pot left out of position, we probably won't jam. So think about villain has nuts himself in a scenario like that. So there is a game tree where he goes direction all in. That should include nuts and bluffs, if he has bluffs, right? If he's never bluffing, we can exploit it like as an exploit, size up ourselves. But I can just show you, we bet small here and get the full brick here. And yeah, there's definitely no all in, right? Because everything that we make indifferent, calling an all in, that should raise itself, right? It's like if I jam here, I mean, his queen jack is indifferent. What can I do against queen jack if I want to get the maximum money against that? Well, I can block bet and then, well, queen jack, bad example, but more the sets, they should raise, right? My goal is to get the maximum money in. So this is where the dice principle helps a little. It's not necessary, right, to just go very, very crazy, right? We can size up a little or anything. That's fine. But it's really that the thought process of getting the maximum money in. And that's not necessarily by betting big. Okay, so let's get to the next example. So we have seen something like that. We have seen a brick, actually not a brick turn. We have seen the 7. That's like a decent card. We have seen the queen that is very good for in position. Let's check out a brick. What happens here is pretty much the same thing like the 7 as well, just not adding that much equity. And here we see a clear large sizing. We're just clearly polarizing with nuts, deuces, deuce 3. Jack 9 is again the mix, right? Think about the lookalike. We want to check some of our jack X, king jack, queen jack. So we take our strongest jack, the jack 9 as well, and sometimes check jack. That's tough. And yeah, take those hands with equity to barrel. And what we see here is, well, we give up something like queen 4 suited that we should have check raised sometimes, but we barrel something like ace 3. Right? Because this has equity. This has 5 outs to make the freaking nuts. Queen 4 has nothing. And yeah, this is pretty much, again, where we clearly have, we split our range in a way, hey, we play part 1 and part 3 together with a big bet, and we play part 2 and part 3 together as a check or small betting range would be an option as well. Okay, let's get to the next example. I think, which one was that? Let me double check. This one here. Okay. I think this is I guess an easy one. Let's see. Where is Hold'em Enter here? Queen 7-4 I'm looking for here, this one. All right, 2.5x from the cutoff, ace 8 off is already close. Welcome all tournament players. We are freaking nits. Very good player, NL 5K plus playing as well. So here we're playing NL 3000. We face that board, Queen 7-4 with a flush draw. We have the backdoor nut flush draw. We have some kind of a backdoor straight draw, and we face not a small bet, but a half pot bet. Actually, I did not see that this morning, so I solved it for a small bet, which I think it doesn't really make sense to bet half pot on that board, given the 7-4 is way better for out of position. And yeah, half pot, I don't like that his bet size there, but maybe he's just simplifying there in a way, I don't know. And I'm check raising this one here and face a turn card. And again, so the flush gets there, 5-3 and 5-8 gets there. Something like 4-6, 7-6 has a 2 pair now. Again, the question, what is your main bet size? Not here. Where's the Kahoot? Give me a second. Here we go. Next. Which is the main sizing we want to use on that Queen 7-4 with a flush draw where the straight card with a flush gets there on the turn. I hope everyone understood now what 2E means. The linear sizing direction all in. All right, so what we see here is a clear no overbet. We see some 2E, we see some 75, we see 30. And let's just have a look instead of just me telling you guys. That's the wrong one. Queen 7-4 versus cutoff, that's the one. So yeah, you see already I solved it again, a small size, which is 30% in that sim, and a big size, which is 75. And just how much Pio chooses the bigger size tells me that his half pot is not really a thing. So let's pretend he did bet small. Then we build a betting range where ace-8 with the ace of spades just is 100% fist pump clear check raise. And yeah, little rule of thumb here is always you check raise some flush draws, so you need some of those offsuit ace of spades as well, and you always take the weakest one in your range, right? The straight connectivity helps here additionally, but just knowing the weakest ones in your range, and this is big blind versus cutoff, I just know that I have some ace-5, some ace-8, and I start having ace-9 all the time. So ace-8 and ace-5 are my offsuit ace of spades here. This is created over time. I know this is probably have to like have all those small golden rules to follow, but this is definitely in our range. And now we get the 6 of spades. And congratulations to everyone who found the 30% button, because, well, now we can think about why is that the case? And one main thing I want you to think about always is really, where is our advantage? If I bet big, it will come down to flushes. If I go directional in, do I have an advantage there? Not at all. Right? So villain has as many flushes. It's like low cards, 4 and 6 of spades. So villain has all the Broadway and high flushes, ace high flush. He has all of that. So I don't have an advantage there. Where's my advantage? I have more 4-6. I have more 7-6. I can check raise those. We can double check on that. Oh, we have some 4-6. We have some 7-6. I have 8-5 makes a straight. 5-3 makes a straight. I have 5x. I have 8x. All those have equity, but they don't have equity if I bet big and villain pretty much continues with flushes all the time. Right? My 8x has good equity against his random pocket jacks without a spade, or against his random king queen. So I want to attack that part and not go directional in. Actually, betting big makes it easy for villain here. And now the standard question I get here is, but I want to get the money in with my nuts. Yes, sure. But what is stacking off against you? If you have the nut flush, well, you will stack the king high flush. Don't worry, right? It's like he should raise that at some point. If you block bet and block bet again, yeah, he should raise any flush actually, right? So don't really think, change that term. Think about where is your advantage. Think about how much part 2, part 1 do you have, which sizing is effective, and put the dice principle in there as well. It's not just betting. Your goal with the nuts is to get the maximum money in, not doing that by betting. And yeah, if people are super passive, obviously we need to be betting. And now we see I did not follow Pio, and I was like, I have the freaking ace of spades. I go all in here, right? So I just went with the 75. I thought this is a thing here. It would be, I think, if like the turn is a 9, for example. Let's just double check. I didn't check on that. This is just me guessing now. Yeah, then we have some of the bigger, because then I don't have that extra advantage of straighty stuff. Right? I don't have 5-3 and 5-8. So you see, like ace-8 is one of the first hands that actually wants to take the big sizing directional in. But that 6 is actually a big game changer, just giving me so many straights. And think about if I bet big here with my straight, for example. What do I do on the river? I don't have a big value bet anymore because villain has so many flushes. Here, I mean, I played it this way, the obvious way, just going all in a way with my ace of spades, but it's actually not the way I should play it. I mean, it did work out here. But actually, this is just a small turn bet and then a river check, actually, and then I have the potential check jam if I want to. But yeah, something to learn from for sure. Not saying, like, usually the flush card means decrease sizing. Decrease sizing, everyone has nuts. So I need to find the point where I have the advantage. And maybe to point that out once more is, let's check this here, the Range Explorer. And we look at that graph on the bottom right. And what we see here is out of position equity is the green line, and in position equity is the red line. And now, by choosing bet sizings, we decide which parts of our hands we are playing. If I go directional in, we are playing, and actually, let's make it that way. Give me a second. Great paint. Get some paint skills in here. So this is the graph I want to look at. And what happens if we're playing with big sizes? We're deciding to play top 10% versus, that didn't work out, top 10% versus top 10%. And now I can ask you, well, hey, I don't see the advantage where like green is not really better than red here. That's like the same thing. We both have the flushes. If I say, hey, I'm not betting, I'm checking. What happens? Well, we play full range versus full range, which, well, I could now make the big rectangle, but actually that just means that the bottom part is included here as well. And here I have no advantage either. Right? Like if I'm checking, well, I'm keeping bottom 30, 50% in there as well. What do I really want to achieve is I want to like tackle this part. Right? I want to find a point where I can like, where villain folds some of that stuff, but needs to continue with this. And this will come down to me winning more often at Showdown because I have the clear advantages here. This is where I talked about the straight 5-3, 5-8 in there for sure. 7-6, 4-6 in there for sure. The sets I did check raise on the flop in there 100%. This is where my advantage is on that certain board. This is why I changed it now one time to the 9 of spades to just show you, hey, that is less of a straight advantage. So it's not that necessary to use that small sizing to target villain. All right, I hope that helped a little as an explanation. And this is really a nice graph to look at. And I think I haven't seen more clear graphs than that one so far. That's very nice. It's like when you see other ones, we have one more example, I guess. Well, let's pull out the Jack-9 deuce again, up here. Just have a look at the Jack-9 deuce again that we had before. Just show that as well, how it looks there. We had a check, a small bet, a check raise, a call. We had a 7 of hearts on the turn. And here we see the overbet. And now let's have a look at the Range Explorer. Where is the advantage here? Right? I don't open paint now, but actually it's more in that upper area here where the advantage is. Like here, that is all the Jack-9s. Here is all the Jack-9s. That is our advantage here. So we want to more tackle this with normal bet sizes like 75%. We're tackling that part. Small bet sizes seem to not make any sense, right? Then we force villain to continue like with his top 70, 80%. That does not really help us. All right, so let's see. What's the next one? I need to double check my list here. Oh, we have one more. Okay, 885. Where is an 8? I'm looking for an 885 board here. Here we have it. Okay, NL 500 this time. Defending big blind versus cutoff against a very good drag. I think we can check. We can 3-bet that sometimes as well. Board 885. So that board is very interesting because now what I talked about before in the general thoughts, we can apply that right away on the flop. Here, we don't have much part 2. We don't have hands that are interesting in getting to Showdown cheaply. And this is why that is a very, very high frequency check raise board. I'm getting lost. Right? This is where we can play like 25% check raise strategy because we are not interested in calling too much. We don't have a mid pair plus something. We have a 5x, we have an 8x, we have a straight draw, or we are full of shit. So this is why something like that is just always a check raise, always, always. And then same question as before. I did check raise. We turn here a flush draw, but our hand doesn't matter. And my question is, what's our favorite sizing here? And I don't want to make it a trick question. It is multiple sizings here that we can use. So try to find the ones that are used like frequently. Yeah, let's start the Kahoot here. Multi-select. Okay, which is the main sizing we want to use on 885, turn bringing a flush draw. All right. So now the big question is obviously why, right? Why are pretty much all the selections are okay, right? That would be a little different. So here we are facing the cutoff. The cutoff actually has still quite some 8x. If it was like 775, 665, it would be way more of the bigger sizes because our advantage is around that 8. But let's just check it out. 885. So first villain, we see, is it cutoff? Yeah, it's cutoff. Can still c-bet very high frequency because he has quite some. He has ace-8 offsuit, so he has all the suited 8x. That's still some 8x. And now we see like the 25% check raise or 24 I was talking about, something like 9, 10 of diamonds, just pretty much always being in there. Not many hands that are really natural calls, like obviously something like ace queen, ace jack, but these are all low EV hands. Like the $3 we make here by calling is not changing the world. And so what happens now that we check raise that wide here? Well, first of all, we give villain trouble, like villain's offsuit hands, all that trouble. That's great. But now, what does that mean by us check raising a very, very high frequency, like very, very wide range? We have, in the end, kind of a linear range, which is interesting, right? We have 8x. We have something like pocket 7s, pocket 9s, pocket 6s. We have the boat. But we have some of the 4s, 3s, deuces as well. We have the backdoor straight draws. We have just like random overcards with a backdoor flush draw plus backdoor straight draw. Something like ace 4 of something. It's just a very, very wild mix. And that brings us to the turn. That is more or less a brick. It adds a flush draw, but that's it, right? Ace 4, ace 3 now has a gutter. But it's like not that interesting. And now what we see here is we have a wide range. Villain has a wide range. And everything makes sense. There are no clear advantages. I think that goes a little more away from the overbet sizing. If I keep running it, I guess that was really not, it's okay. But we see like it's really whatever, because we still have all range parts and villain still has all range parts with no gaps. There's nothing to attack really. It's just a very big sizing. I cut that a little away, even though it is still 6%, just makes it too easy. Right? Then like you can only do that with an 8 and villain has enough 8s in the end. So it's like, okay, does it really, is this the best option? We're working with small, right? Something villain needs to call all ace highs. So why not betting small again with something like pocket 7s? Totally fine, right? Using a normal big bet size with something like ace 4, why not, right? It's like really there's not a clear advantage. And now I didn't look that up before, but I expect that Range Explorer to just look like a very linear function, right? Just both of them being very close together all the way, right? So we see here, yeah, it's like whatever, right? They're actually like out of position has like some advantage around the 8x after check raising, but in position is like protected in that way. And yeah, so it really, it makes sense to target that small part here, but that is really tough. Right? That's like one very, very specific thing. And getting there is like by betting small and getting raised or by whatever. It's not necessarily just the all-in, because villain is heavily protected. And in between, there's not a clear part that we want to be attacked. So that's whatever, right? So let's just look at the hand, how it played out. And it's, yeah, one more thing that it's important to accept when things do not matter too much. But actually, I made a mistake here. I did overbet. And I don't like it. My thought process, I remember that hand in game was clearly to fold out better draws, because against that bet size, he cannot call with like a queen high flush draw, but he doesn't have them. If I have like a 4-6 of diamonds, I'm fine with that. But the only queen high he's having is like queen 10 and queen 9, pretty much. And ace high flush draws are not folding, and king high not necessarily either. So it's just by me having that 9-10, I'm just really blocking the hands I try to follow. And now what's happening, I'm just getting called by ace high and king high flush draws and by hands that have me beat. So it's like really bad stuff happening here for me. I should rather bet small here or something normal to attack his ace queen, ace king, whatever. So yeah, I ended up getting there, but I do not like how I played that hand. All right, so these were the few questions I prepared there regarding that. So let's just, I have a couple of more hands that I want to talk through with you, and we can just put into use what we've talked about so far. This here, this here, this here, this here, and okay, and maybe I think I should have one more slide here to share with you guys. And where did the presentation go? Here. Okay, so maybe going through the spot one more time before looking at the last examples. We want to know our check raising range. That's our baseline. That is so important that we have an idea of what we are doing here. Then the turn card falls. We want to evaluate that. What I mean with evaluating is we want to know how many new nuts does it give to us? How much medium part do we add? And how does it look with a nut advantage? What that means is how many of our old nuts are not nuts anymore? Or rephrasing that, how many nuts did villain improve to? I remember the Jack 9 on Jack 9 deuce, turn is a queen. Sure, I have new nuts with 10-8 and King 10, but my Jack 9 is not strong anymore. So that decreased in value because villain has all that. Right? So from the other Poker Academy coaching, the Queen 5-6 versus under the gun was my example there. We do check raise, and there we have beautiful things where a 3, for example, adds new nuts, but the old nuts are still nuts because under the gun does not improve on a 3. So my 2 pairs are still freaking nuts, but I have straights added. And that was something where we can overbet our full range on the turn pretty much. Okay, this is what I mean with evaluating the turn card. This needs good knowledge of your range and hopefully some knowledge of villain's range as well. Then, looking at that, we can come up with our sizing plan. We build our wardrobe. And that's it pretty much. What makes sense? We need to have like 2 clear things in mind. How do we continue with the one part, which is medium strong hands and nuts that we want to check or bet small, just like get to showdown in a way, because they work for each other. If villain wants to attack that, he donates into our nuts. If he does not want to attack that, well, our medium showdown value hands are very, very happy. And the other part that we need to put together is the air we are having and the other part of our nuts that we want to play aggressively. And then, well, last point is just execution, as always, I guess. So yeah, let's try to do that for some of the last examples I'm having here. And, oh, we see his hand already. That's not good. Not a good sign, but okay. We defend 6-4 suited here. That's a little similar to the Jack 9 deuce, I would say. And I do check raise here as well. This one, I mean, it's not the perfect board to go crazy with check raises because villain does not have a chance to c-bet too wide. If he can or is allowed to bet full range, he cannot over c-bet. So I would rather like that to be some kind of Jack 7-4, right? Where he's not allowed to c-bet full range. So I'm not really I just play like a little Pio-like and do not exploit anything here really. I turn a flush draw. I have a set blocker with a 4. That's pretty clear. We are slightly deep. I'm definitely using the 2E sizing here, which is a little larger because we are that deep. He ends up calling. We get the suboptimal runout here and get it in. But pretty standard hand. We're like, let's talk about the turn evaluation. The 7 is a full brick. I improved to some 7-4. Maybe he has 2 combinations of 9-7 suited. Maybe, yeah, we still have all the gut shots, Queen Jack, Jack 10, Queen 10. That's it. My old nuts are still nuts. I don't have any new nuts, so nothing changed. What do? I take my best draws that I continue with, like some ace-5 of diamonds, something like this here sometimes. And I bet most of my nuts. And yeah, the ones, what am I checking is pretty much like the Jack 9 deuce example. I check some of my King 9 to protect my King 5 of hearts. I'm sometimes check raising. Some other King X, like my King Queen, King Jack, I'm sometimes check raising. And that should do the job. All right, pretty easy one. Let's go to the next one. I defend ace 9 offsuit against the cutoff. Villain c-bet small here again. And this is one of those where we don't have like really, we don't have the plan to play for stacks pretty much. Obviously we have 5 outs where we can do so, but we want to deny lots of his equity. He can have King Jack offsuit, Queen 10 offsuit, all that stuff. So check raising, it's pretty much like check calling, but having fold equity. This is how I see it. And that gives us the logic to just keep start the turn with checking very, very frequently. The 6, I do have some 6s, but the 6 does not improve any of my draws really. I have some 6x and yeah, my draws actually decrease in value because I'm not drawing to nuts anymore with my straight draws, but it's pretty much a brick as well. And yeah, I think I have some big bets here. I can block bet that as well to target some kind of ace high, but mainly I will be checking. And then it's like after check calling. Right? So this is why I called that on the flop, check calling with fold equity. I plan it as if I had check called before. Now he's betting small. I have a fist pump snap call. Actually raising is an option as well. And the river deuce is not the best card. He bets that and his ace 9 would be a value bet. And this is just what we need to call. Hoping for him having like some kind of Jack 10, Queen 10 random bluffs. but that's totally fine. So we both played that hand totally fine, totally Pio confirmed. Yeah. Let's see this one, ace 10 suited versus ace 5 offsuit. Now he uses a big sizing. So this is obviously fits very well to his hand. And here I made a mistake. I told you before that I always start with the weakest offsuit ace X that I have to put in my check raising range. But if you remember how we think about facing c-bets and how to continue, that were two steps as well. First, building our defending range. Second, splitting that up into calls and check raises. I started with the second step here without even thinking about the first step. He sizes up a lot. That means I need to fold a lot. Sure, my hand is somewhat okay, but against a big bet, this is just a fold. And I was like just thinking, okay, I have my, like probably before his bet, I look at the flop. It's like ace of spades, 5, backdoor, like one of my weakest aces, backdoor straight draw, backdoor nut flush draw, awesome. And then not reacting to the big bet. So my hand is just a fold. I obviously end up check raising. And this is a perfect turn for me. See how I use the 2e sizing now, which is now not 120% pot, but it is about pot because flop sizing was big. 8-9 got there, 4-5 got there, 6-7, I can have that. I have more of the straight draws, that's all cool. So totally fine to go with pot here quite often. Planning to make all his over pairs indifferent at some point, all his top pairs. And yeah, river with the ace of spades, that's one of the first give ups, unfortunately. If you're three-handed here, is this one of your worst aces? Well, a 3 has a pair. I have ace 4 off as well. And ace deuce off is a solver fold. In reality, I have it. But then it's like ace deuce, ace 4, ace 5 is like the same. The kicker will never play. And then I prefer ace 4 or ace 5 just for the straight draw. So it's like when I say the worst aces, you don't need the difference whether it's ace 5 or ace deuce, right? Whether like that just does not matter. The kicker will never play. So that's all one. Okay, cool. Yeah, pretty easy. I think nice hand from both of us. Just me not seeing the bigger flop size or not reacting to it, which is not good. Pocket fives. Defending, flopping a set. So far, so good. Facing a big c-bet from a very good drag. I think he makes very nice Zoom 500 videos, but this sizing does not exist in real world. Like this is exploitative versus the pool. Like I give him pocket tens here right away. That's just, this sizing does not exist. Big on that board, we can all run the sim. Middle position versus big blind does not exist. So out in tournament, it exists with shorter stacks, yes. I think deeper, not really. And maybe because big blind is even way wider. I mean, this in the cash game world definitely does not exist. I don't have like offsuit garbage. So yeah, now he, by betting bigger, he polarizes right away. But he says he has something strong or not. And this is when I use a bigger raise size as well. And he calls. Turn is a very bad card. And we've learned what we need to do on those very bad cards. We bet small. And right, 1/3 is totally fine. This is the, here sometimes I have a 25% hotkey, sometimes I have a 30%. So that's small size is fine. The exact size really does not matter. And the river is as bad as it can get. And I guess this is just our check fold, unfortunately. But okay, that happens. Okay, one last very interesting hand. And this was the one I referred to when I said we'll probably get to see it when to check nuts as well. So here, villain, again, very interesting. c-bet's big on that board. Here it is totally a thing, but with his hand is a little unnatural. And yeah, I size up, top 2, I can sometimes call, I should most of the time raise. And the turn, I, boom, turn the super freaking super nuts. So the biggest mistake I can be doing here now is to overbet. Because I'm blocking his 9x, his calling range, and I don't want something like Jack 10 or a Queen 10 or a Queen Jack ever to fold. That would be a big problem, right? Hands that are drawing to some nutted hands, but actually in this case, they are second nuts. So yeah, actually this is most of the time or pretty clear Pio check. I think I ended up betting small, which does not really make sense. So I guess that is not the nicest line. This is just a pretty clear check. This is not achieving too much. Like which hand do I want to do that with? Some ace 9. Yes, some frequency, it will be fine, but not like one of the major lines. I prefer to check here. And okay, I just run another 8. That's okay, right? But really interesting just to think about that. I think that was now very fast. All the quick rundowns, rewatch that, think that his turn race against the block bet is a thing. Definitely, yes. Maybe I have it here even. Let us check. Let's take that as, I mean, it's last hand anyways, so I think I solved that one. I don't remember anymore. Here, let's see. I don't want to lie here. So I only offered him the big bet because he used that. So a 7-8 suited. If we only offer a big bet, it's definitely a thing. 8-9 can be a call, most of the time a raise, as I said. And the turn was which 8? 8 of diamonds. Calls. 8 of diamonds. And now what we see here is that's just the worst card in the world for us because it kills lots of our 9-8 combinations. It decreases the value of all our draws. And this is what I actually said in the opening question to one of the answers as well. Well, if we need to accept it when the card is very bad for us, so we should check the majority of our range. And 8-9, we see like the Americans call it trace play, right? When you can see some traces of like in Pio that it's like okay to do something. That's just the clearest check of all times. So I have to blame you for that. And yeah. And so we just lost all of our advantage on that stupid turn, and we should check. But if we bet small, him raising here is totally fine, right? He should always start with a better 8x, but yeah. So he raises, then my call is fine. And then on a river was a king, I guess. Then he can jam any 8, I guess. So yeah, that's totally fine. Where is our advantage on the turn? On that turn, there's not a real advantage anymore, I guess. Here, out of position. It's just we're just losing so many combinations of like because another 8 appears and we have so much air. Like all our draws, it's not only that our draws did not get there, it's just that they decreased in value because boats are possible now as well. Okay, let's wrap that up with, I guess, the last slide, summary, right? So very important, in which way ever, does not matter too much, but have your own guideline for a thought process. I want you to have a thought process. I gave you mine, more or less, right? Talked you through some examples to showcase that a little. And yeah, then really important for me is that understanding next that it's not about the nuts. Don't think about the nuts too much, right? It's not nuts need to be a bet. That's the best play most of the time on lower stakes. Yes, but I want you to understand why. Weak and medium strong hands actually give incentives, and they should tell us because of that how we want to play, mainly with our range, because the only goal of our nuts is to get the maximum money in the middle. If that is by betting, do so. Go ahead. Right? If it's okay to leave our medium strong hands alone, perfect. If villain has the incentive to bet, but he is not doing it, well, we over-realize equity and we still get called when we bet with our nuts. Totally fine. And always think about, remember that little range explorer lesson there, where is our advantage? Do I try to get to direction all in because we have our advantage here? Or is it somewhere in between? And remember the queen 7-4-6 with a flush example. Both players have flushes, but we had the straights and the 2 pairs, and there was more like in between. So we want to use small sizings to tackle that part, to make use of like villain being lost with his top pairs, with his kings, with his aces, not having all those 2 pairs and straights. All right, that's it. Again, longer than expected, but that's I guess the standard. And yeah, now I was on vacation for all. So before like all the videos of the last weeks, I had to record them before. Now I'm fresh again. Give me some time to come up with the next videos, and then I think end of next week I will have something done for the next upload. Until then, feel free to make a thread as well in the Cash Game content section to discuss that even more. Put hands, especially of that topic in the Cash Game hands analysis. And then see you around, guys. And yeah, enjoyed the session. I hope you did too. And yeah, as always, I think I open up something in the feedback thread. Is always trying to make sessions better. Leave some feedback there, positive, negative, constructive, whatever. Just stay in touch there, and see you in the Slack community, I guess. Kahoot results. It was not a fight. There was, but okay, I can show it. Kahoot results. So John, you missed most of it. Yes, you will be able to watch the recording. Give us 2 days or something like that. So very, very close fight there for gold. That's the, I guess, but for everyone right now, these weeks, it's all about the Olympic spirit, right? We need to go for gold. Yeah, so do that on the tables as well. Enjoy your day, guys. Bye-bye.